Chapter 60. Plans. Moonlight, moonlight, shining on the porch. Fan Ruah said with pity, "My future sister-in-law, I heard that she suffers from consumption and often hemoptysis, so she has been forbidden to eat oil and meat, that girl you said, since she gnaws on chicken legs." She thought about the scene that her brother had said earlier, and couldn't help but laugh out. That naturally can't be Miss Lin, not to mention that Miss Lin's appearance is said to be only clear, and definitely not as beautiful as the one described by her brother as being as beautiful as heavenly fairies. Fan Xian thought for a moment that this was indeed the case, and with a sigh, he put the matter aside, but he would not give up on the idea of searching for that girl, except that another image surfaced in his mind, and he could not help but frown slightly. Consumption? He knew that in this world consumption was equivalent to an incurable disease, although he had followed Fei Jie for a year, and hadn't broken his cultivation in all aspects in the future, but the other party, since she was the daughter of the eldest princess, there must be an imperial doctor to see and treat her, and even if the imperial doctor couldn't cure the disease, what could he do about it? With Fei Jie absent, this was a really big problem. The next day, Fan Xian got up and realized that his father, sister, and Lu were not there, and after eating some light porridge and small dishes under the service of his subordinates, he prepared to go out. He planned to go to the Qing temple to try his luck and see if he could meet that girl again. When he was about to leave the house, Fan Xian ran over, pulled him by his sleeve, and dragged him into the study, handing him a few sheets of paper in a very serious manner. Fan Xian curiously glanced at him and realized that his brother's eyes were full of bloodshot. It seems that he stayed up all night last night, and asked, "If you don't sleep at night, won't the second aunt have to say something about you when she sees you?" Fan Xian hemmed and hawed and laughed a few times, "Learning from you, hiding it." Fan Xian laughed, and rubbed his fingers together to open the sheets of paper, and propped up his jaw to look at them, which contained the plan that Fan Xian had made last night. Although Fan Xian had not been a successful businessman in his previous life, he had never eaten pork, but had always seen a pig run, and the business atmosphere in his previous life was not the same as that of Qing dynasty, but it was not the same as that of today. Although Fan Xian was not a successful businessman in his previous life, he had never seen a pig run before, and the business atmosphere in his previous life was completely different from that of today's Qing dynasty. His brows gradually frowned as he asked, "Your idea is good, but I'm not familiar with Kyoto, so whether the location of the bookstore is good or not is at your own discretion. But there's a problem. Although we're the only one with a source of book manuscripts, after you print it out, how can you guarantee that other booksellers won't pirate it?" Fan Xian said with a fervent face, "My family is very free now, and the servants have nothing to do, so I can let them wander the streets, and when they see a pirate, they'll smash one." Fan Xian was dumbfounded, thinking to himself, "All you can do is smash and grab?" Completely inconsistent with his expectations, he shook his head with a bitter smile. "Don't look at the book dealers as insignificant, but the profits are actually not small. Who knows if there's any background behind the other family?" "Then what are you afraid of? This manuscript is originally our family. He pirated the printing and there is a reason to go?" Fan Xian yelled. Fan Xian reminded him, "There is no provision in the Qing law to protect the manuscript from being printed. Besides, this book has not passed the 8 audits, and if you file a lawsuit, you are afraid that you will have to pay for the silver first." Fan Xian heatedly smiled and said, "This is not afraid. If we really want to open a bookstore, let our old man write a letter, and the 8 offices there will not give up face." Fan Xian thought about it. His seemingly ordinary father, the relationship with the supervisory yuan is much deeper than the average person knows, and then thought and said, "But even if you get rid of the identity of the banned books, you still can't rely on the smash and grab to eliminate the competitors, the so-called hit the people can't hit the face, you in the streets of Kyoto to drive those middle-aged women, sealing the other store, which is a tearing of the face. The way of doing it. For the sake of silver, both sides of the backstage fight, everyone is not cost-effective. What are you afraid of?" Fan Xian blankly glanced at him, seeming to think that this elder brother was a bit of a womanizer. "If you feel that you don't have a name for it, you can think of a way to set up a rule, and then follow the rules in the future. And if another bookseller dares to steal a print again, just let the government step in. Fan Xian laughed out loud. Rules? Could it be that the imperial court's laws would be so childish as to change them just because the Fan family wants to publish a book? Fan Sith shook his head. How can the laws be changed? Of course it's the way below. It's still very simple to change the Kyoto Guard regulations. That murderous bitch from Yi Chang's family is on good terms with County Lord Rugia. So please ask your sister to go and get the King of Jing County's family to say something to Yi's family, and it won't be a done deal. Fan Xian became interested and asked, the Kyoto Guard regulations also govern the sale of books? Fan Xizha was stunned, and after some thought, said, it seems like there's a clause in there that governs roving merchants, so it's just the right time to put it into play. Fan Xian couldn't help but marvel, thinking that this little guy in front of him really has the potential to be a crooked businessman. Collusion between the government and business, and the city management brigade can think of such cruel tricks out of thin air. Just that he knows that there is always a gap between the ideal and the reality, and asked, have you counted the profit yet? 10 times a volume, each volume of 8 taels of silver, right now a total of 68 times. There are a total of 640,000 people in Kyoto. 1,000 people a volume can also sell more than 600 sets to go. Calculating carefully, it can be sold for 35,840 taels of silver. Fan Xizha said with great interest. He had already calculated these items clearly. The rent of Luodong Road is more expensive, plus the cost of proofreading. The matter of printing books is all left to Wanroll Hall to do, so you can worry less about it. 10,000 Scrolls Hall? Fan Xian asked curiously. The most famous private printing house in Kyoto. Fan Xizha smiled grimly. He has a big family, but he doesn't have any reliable people behind him, so if he dares to cheat on our manuscripts, he'll just copy them and turn them upside down, and he'll probably make even more money. Fan Xian wanted to vomit blood in frustration. When you do the math, there will be at least a few thousand taels of silver in the books during the year, and if we can really get the other booksellers to stop, the number will go up. Fan Xian sighed. You are also too optimistic. If you want to become a successful businessman, you must first save for a rainy day. Let's say the number you predicted. Although the people of Kyoto are affluent, each set costs more than 50 taels of silver. How can so many people afford to pay that price? Fan Xizha was shocked, looking at Fan Xian as if he were a monster, saying, don't you know what the market is now for that book you wrote? Fan Xian's eyes widened, thinking that Dream of Red Mansions had gradually become popular during the Qianlong period in his previous life, and he had seen it sold for hundreds of taels of silver in the miscellaneous news, but it was a handwritten copy, and not many copies of the book were circulated, so if you were going to publish it in a large scale, would it still be sold at such a high price? Fan Xizha sighed. A few days ago, I heard that the Miss Kyoto government minister's family, because of the brother wrote this book, Tea and Rice, Dementia, by the government minister's wife. A fire will be the manuscript burned. The miss cried out in pain. Nai burned my treasure jade, this disease for a long time. Brother, this Kyoto is not compared to somewhere else. The officials are as many as dogs and carp. The officials are as many as dogs and carp. This Kyoto is not like other places. The officials are as many as dogs and carp. How many of these ladies who have nothing to do all day long? Selling hundreds or thousands of sets is no problem at all. Fan Xian was dumbfounded, and thought to himself, shouldn't he bring up some refreshments to console that poor Miss Prefect?